Since Jim Harbaugh has taken over, we have seen the Chargers culture change to a more physical philosophy, but it doesn't happen overnight. However, in 2025, it does feel like they're more ready to play some bully ball.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to all the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from, especially since we have a very special guest on tomorrow's show, the director joining the show. But David, what do we have today?
Today, we are going to get into the Chargers trying to actually put into practice bully football, beating the opponents up and having the actual team to be able to execute that vision. And we're also going to talk about the offensive line. Are we too concerned with the left guard position? I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think so. And also, the Chargers had an opportunity on the clock to make a trade to get out of that pick. Instead, they go with Omarion Hampton. Was that a mistake?
Man, I mean, they definitely took all of the time they had allotted to them to try and figure it out. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And David, it's Wednesday, but it's a buy or sell Wednesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And there's been a lot flying around post-draft, and I think that there's so many we had today. Thank you to the everydayers out there that we're going to have to turn some into some Fan Mail Friday buy or sells. But we start with this one from Jackson, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers will be more successful playing bully ball on the offensive side of the ball this season. David, you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I think the Chargers last season, they wanted to institute bully ball. It was definitely part of the philosophy. It was what they wanted to do, but they just didn't have all the personnel to be able to do it. And for me, I think, against the Steelers in particular, they saw it, towards the end of the game, a 10-play, 65-yard drive that milked for the last 4 minutes and 59 seconds off the clock and ended in victory formation for the Steelers. And the running back that was on that last drive, who received 4 out of those 10 plays, was, of course, Najee Harris, the current Chargers running back. So they said, well, hey, I can't really do it right now, but that right there, that's exactly what that looks like. And that's why I had to go get Najee Harris, and also why they had to reinforce that by bringing in Omarion Hampton, who has 1,222 yards after contact in his last season of college football. And of course, bringing in the monster on the right side, Mekhi Becton. And so I think, with what the moves that they've made, they put themselves in a much better position to go out there and actually play bully football.
Yeah, I'm buying it because they are a lot closer to doing it, and I'm closer to buying in that they can actually do it in 2025 because of those additions you talked about. Those are really the three. If you're talking about bullying on the offensive side of things, Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris, Mekhi Becton all bring a certain level of physicality and an upgrade in physicality at the positions they are going to be playing. And if you do want to be a bully ball team to finish teams in the fourth quarter, these are the kind of additions you would make. And that is why something like this isn't just a rah-rah, we're tougher than you, we're stronger than you, we're meaner than you. It has real, actual consequences. And especially when you're talking about the ability to finish games and be able to finish games on your own terms and being able to run the clock out when the other team knows it's coming at you. And now you look at the right side of the Chargers offensive line, and it feels like a huge strength for you. I mean, you have 700 pounds of offensive linemen between Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton that you can kind of lean on people with. Now you add, Will Dissly to the end of that, and I mean, you're talking about 3 really, really good run blockers and just a ton of size that's coming at you there. And I think that should be kind of one of the bread and butters of this offense if they decide to go in that direction. I'd say the other part of it is, last year, early on in the season, we saw the Chargers run a lot of 12 personnel, trying to have 2 tight ends on the field, trying to have kind of bigger bodies and create mismatches in that way. But it didn't work because they didn't have the personnel for it. Now, if you want to go 12 personnel, if you want to have 2 tight ends on the field, you actually have weapons at tight end that will scare other teams a little bit more. Last year, you didn't even have the wide receivers to scare people, right? You were going out in 12 personnel with basically Will Dissly, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, and that's it. Like who was that scaring in that, right? And Hayden Hurst obviously was your other second tight end. Obviously wasn't bringing very much to you, but I think that when you look at that specific way, hey, if you want to go big, you want to lean on people, you have guys that are more capable of doing that now. And when I think of bully ball, that's kind of what it means to me, is the ability to run when you know we're running, the ability to out physical you and just kind of maul you in the fourth quarter and make you not want to play football anymore. As we've seen, multiple quotes about a lot of the Chargers' new additions having some sort of that in their kind of NFL DNA. But let's get to this next one here from Bolt City, who says, buy or sell. With more weapons on offense, you see Greg Roman opening the playbook more and allowing Justin Herbert to take more deep shots. David, buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to buy this, but it's also not just because of the weapons that were brought in, but also I think Greg Roman fully understanding who he has under center now. I think it's one thing to be able to see Justin Herbert from afar. It's another thing to be able to have him and coach him and actually embrace all of the talent that he brings to the table, because Justin Herbert didn't throw for over 250 yards passing until after week 6, of last season. And then he did it in 7 of the final 12 contests in the regular season. So I think he found out quickly that, hey, with the way the offense was currently constructed, I definitely needed to give the ball and put it in my superstar quarterback's hands a lot more often. And now there's a much more intimidating slate of weapons to be able to throw the football to. It's not just Lab McConkey getting open all over the field. Now you have to respect what is going to be coming on the outside with Mike Williams and his jump ball ability, and Tyler Conklin and his ability to command the middle of the football field, and KLS's speed going down the sideline, and Rondé Gadsden and what he's going to be able to do, and his yards after catch ability. And just so many more options. It's not just Lab McConkey and everybody else. Now it's weapons that you actually have to respect because of what they are capable of doing on the field.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part of this is they actually threw the ball deep quite a bit last year. I think the bigger thing is just they weren't super effective when they did it. Or it just didn't feel like kind of the connection was there with Justin Herbert and a lot of these guys down the field. It took a lot of deep shots to Quentin Johnston. We know that really what his game was last season. But according to PFF, Herbert took the 3rd most deep shots in the NFL last year, and he was 4th in passer rating when he threw them. And it's crazy because the Chargers, statistically speaking, were actually good on deep balls. Like Justin Herbert was a good deep ball quarterback, and they left so much on the table last year when you're talking about, back shoulder throws to Quentin Johnston, overthrows, and just miscommunications with Josh Palmer down the field. Now, the best deep threat last season was Lad McConkey, and he rebailed Justin Herbert. And really this offense out a few of those times with some of those deep plays, but still had the 6th highest completion percentage on deep shots with that lack of chemistry he had with these guys, especially down the field. But I think at its heart, Greg Roman wants to be a deep shot team. For him, it's run the ball, go play action, and take your deep shots. And really last year, when you look at those guys, they didn't have that kind of personnel to be able to do that effectively. Like you talked about, Keandre Lambert-Smith brings the deep top end speed. Mike Williams, the best jump ball catcher in the league, period. And now you even have a guy with Trey Harris who at least has a good enough burst to stack defensive backs off the line of scrimmage and the ability to track the football and use his physicality down the field to make big plays. And nobody made more big plays than him on a snap to snap basis last year in college football. So you're talking about those 3 electric weapons. And you brought up another one with Rondé Gadsden II, because he is a guy 4.65 40 time for a tight end, has legitimate seam stretching ability, and also just kind of the knack to find those plays down the field, finish in traffic, and do the things we weren't seeing enough from Will Dissly last year, because that's just not what his game was. So yes, I do think they'll take more deep shots, even though they already took a ton. But more importantly, I just think they'll be a lot more effective, especially
they'll hit more.
Hopefully, a consistent, legitimate running game, but I think the biggest thing is, can you protect Justin Herbert enough to be able to let those plays develop downfield? Because that would be the argument on the other side. And that's what we're going to talk about. If we have been talking about the issue at left guard too much, I don't think we have either. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring you clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy place. The Skylight Calendar has been so helpful for me, especially with the baby, because I've never really had such a strict schedule as I've had now with the baby, and I have much more important things that I have to remember. So whether it's the next bottle or the next nap time, I really credit Skylight Calendar for helping with less mental clutter, because I don't really have to think about the stuff as much, because I know exactly what's going on and where I need to find it. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. David, we have more great buyer sales to get into, and thank you to all the everydayers for checking out today's show as always, and make sure you're back here tomorrow when we have the director on the show. Had him on several times. It's a banger every single time, and I'm excited to hear about the offseason and the draft specifically, because I know you was pretty high on some of the guys they got. But this is a criticism we got, David, from one of our best question and buy or sell askers here, Stay Out 55, who says, buy or sell, the Locked On Chargers hosts, which is us, are way too concerned with left guard after free agency in the draft. David, I understand it, because we talk about this a lot. This is one of the things, especially post-draft, and it was pre-draft, and it was right at the end of last season, one of the things we've been really concerned about. But I do think that, like, when you're talking about a team, maybe it's just because of how well the Chargers did addressing other positions, right? Because it's not multiple kind of issues we have with this team. But when you look at this, I think, yeah, like, this is a glaring kind of issue as of right now, because there is seemingly no legitimate competition right now to take that left guard spot, no matter who is out there. And another kind of little bit of useful information, I saw Stephen Haglund had posted OTA pictures with left guard being Zion Johnson and the center being Bradley Bozeman. So yeah, I'd say, hey, things not changing there is an issue to me, and that's why I'm selling this. And the other thing is, David, it's not one issue. It's two issues. It's left guard and it's center. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that you have to remember in this.
And they're interconnected, right? Like, because the center, or the guys that are trying out to be center, could be the guard, right? And vice versa. So these two position groups are kind of intertwined, in that we don't know who's going to play those positions until kind of the competition, and the dust settles from the competition. But just to remind you, Zion Johnson last year, 33 pressures, 13 hits, 5 sacks, 4 penalties allowed, playing left guard, and also struggled pretty mightily handling twists and stunts. And so did Bradley Bozeman, for that matter, at center. So I think both of these position groups, because right now we don't know who is going to be, playing at center, and we don't know if it's going to be Zion Johnson back at guard, and also understanding the people that are competition there, Trey Pipkins, Andre James, Branson Taylor. Barely any of those guys have had any guard experience, or haven't played in a very, very long time. So I just don't know how you can sit here right now looking at the rest of the roster and not see a gigantic red bullseye on the interior of the offensive line at this moment.
Yeah, and if I ask Chargers fans after the final game, and, you took a step back to realize, hey, Justin Herbert had a bad game, that wasn't the biggest issue all season long. If I asked you what the biggest issue was, you'd say it was the interior of the offensive line. And as of right now, Andre James we'll talk about, but, like, as of right now, if that's the offensive line, if that's the starting 5, how are you supposed to feel better about that with 1 improvement and 2 weak spots still in the middle there? Now, those guys between Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman could have better communication. They can have a lot of things that can improve with more time spent together,
Sure.
But they had the entire offseason last year. And I just think that, hoping that specific thing is what kind of elevates them, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because the thing is if you had replaced one of those guys, right, and said, okay, well, with a different center, now Zion Johnson might have better communication, there'll be better tandem, or with a different guard, maybe Bradley Bozeman's game elevates. It's the same 2 guys, right? Mekhi Becton on the other side, I think, will help, but, like, you're one Mekhi Becton injury away from, like, being in the exact same spot as you were last year.
Yeah.
The exact same spot you were in last year, and everyone knows that was one of the biggest issues, including Senor Snappy, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers 2025 season will end because the interior of the offensive line, yet again, be exploited by a determined opponent. The team still hasn't solved their number one problem. And that's kind of Chargers Twitter in a, microcosm right there, just because that's it. There's both sides of this, David. And I definitely, maybe, season ending's a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you ask me right now, the Chargers don't make the playoffs or they lose their first playoff game again, and you ask me what was the biggest reason why, I would guess it's the interior of the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand that because at least on other parts of the offensive roster, for, just example there, they have absolutely improved most of the other position groups, right? I think you can feel pretty good about that. The wide receivers are definitely deeper and more talented. The tight end room
and we'll
is
talk
a lot
about that
deeper
specifically
and more
too,
talented.
right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about all of those things for sure. But when you look at the offensive line, as Daniel really just kind of mentioned, Mekhi Becton is the only notable big difference on that offensive line. So as things are situated right now, and again, I'm not going to go to the extreme that the season's going to be over, but I am going to buy the fact that it is my biggest concern and it is my biggest worry. And it is a problem to me as of right now that has not been solved as of yet because just the offensive line hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah, and we had another buy or sell from Mike Abducci that said, buy or sell, the Chargers will add to that position. And, there is still so much time, and we've seen a lot. And my biggest fear with that is always just give whoever you want to bring in the entirety of training camp to prove that they're the right guy. Don't wait until training camp to realize you have an issue that we should have already known was an issue last season, and then have to kind of throw somebody in there kind of behind the eight ball. So that's what my biggest fear is. But I do believe Joe Ortiz could still add to this offensive line specifically, even though there's a ton of bodies in that room right now. But let's get to this from Donald Rickert, who says, buy or sell, Andre James will win the starting center job over Bradley Bozeman, despite what a lot of fans say, or despite what a lot of fans fear, as Harbaugh says competitors welcome, and the better player usually plays under Jim Harbaugh. Buy or sell?
Well, also, he's said all offseason that he wanted Zion Johnson to be his center. And then he also said that Bradley Bozeman is his captain and his center. So
yeah,
what can we really believe from Coach Harbaugh, I think is the kind of moral of the story here. We don't really know. But I will say this. If Andre James is given every opportunity to win the center job and he is able to stay healthy, and he's able to kind of find that same form that he excelled at when he was that starter in 2023, then yes, he is clearly the best center on this roster according to his credentials. Now, it is going to be up to him to be able to showcase that because I do believe Jim Harbaugh is a man of his word when he does say competitors welcome and that he will want the best, absolute best players to be playing on Sundays.
At the same time, it feels like, man, they just love Bradley Bozeman. It feels like whatever you're kind of ranking and what constitutes as a great offensive lineman, they're giving more points to Bradley Bozeman for other reasons outside of just protecting Justin Herbert. And I think that is the Achilles heel. Why I feel like I'm selling it right now just by the way things are going. I think it's a fluid situation. If he is the better player, I do have to trust that Jim Harbaugh and his staff will play the better player. But it just feels like they just have an affinity for Bradley Bozeman that's going to be hard for Andre James to overcome. And it sucks to say that, and maybe it's not true. But I do think that the biggest thing is going to be the run blocking for Andre James because he has undoubtedly been a better pass protector than not just Bradley Bozeman, but Zion Johnson as well.
Yeah.
Playing center over the last several seasons, even in his down years, he's been better than those guys.
Yeah.
But he's been a poor run blocker in several of those seasons too, including last year. And we know how much this specific staff and this offense really, really values the run blocking aspect of it. Not just the pass protection. I would prioritize pass protection. That's just me.
Yeah.
They're going to prioritize who is going to run block better out of those guys too, is going to play a huge factor in it. So in a 2023 Josh McDaniels scheme, right, Andre James seemed better fit for that gap style and played much better run blocking in that season. Will we get that this year? It's hard to say, but I do think that, at least there is some competition there, right? And Andre James could be an improvement there, and I think that's all good. The offensive line could really, get developed and get better too, just from coaching and all of those things. We just don't have the benefit of the doubt with those coaches because it did feel like that was an offensive line last year that really underwhelmed and underachieved. And now you have an offensive line with 4 first-round draft picks on it, and whoever ends up playing center, you have the talent. It should be a decent group, but it's just hard when you still have, 2 of the big sore spots are right there, especially for a team that prides itself in valuing offensive linemen. And they showed it with a top 5 pick, right, with Joe Alt. The problem is since then, you signed Mekhi Becton late in free agency, and in the draft, you've only taken 2 offensive linemen, and the other one that wasn't Joe Alt was in the 6th round. So it just felt like there would be more urgency to kind of fixing what we see as a problem. They don't seem to think it's as much of a problem right now, which is what's kind of concerning about it. But we still have more great stuff to get into because, David, there's a lot of great buy or sells, but one of the big ones that's been going around is if Joe Ortiz should have traded back in round 1 instead of taking Omarion Hampton. We're talking about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. I don't know if you guys saw that Tyrese Halliburton game-winning 3 last night. It is so fun to watch the NBA playoffs right now. It's even more fun if you have some action on the game, and FanDuel makes it super easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big, including live in-game betting, where they will give you the trends of the game to help you make the most informed bets, play your props, which I absolutely love. And also, there's an entirely other playoff going on right now, the Stanley Cup playoffs, which are nuts. And I'm all in on my Florida Panthers to bounce back tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs after dropping game 1. And you can get the Ice Cats right now at -1.5 to win by 2. Empty netter at the end, I'm calling it. Plus 176 tonight. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, we still have more great stuff to get to, but we wouldn't have so many great buy or sells without the everydayers. And thank you guys, as always, for contributing to today's show, whether it was on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, on Instagram at LockedOnChargers, or our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Wherever you hit us up, we appreciate it. And thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, as they keep you up with everything post-draft so you can be the most informed NFL fan this offseason on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. Also, make sure you're back here tomorrow because we have a huge special guest, the director, talking all things draft and offseason with us. We're really excited about that. But let's get back to it here, David. We have a lot of good buy or sells, including this one that we have, which is the Chargers should have traded back in round 1 buy or sell. So some context here, right? One of our friends from the Thunder Down Under podcast, Alistair Lloyd, has been making the rounds on social media because he gave the Chargers draft a B-, which is, go for it,
Yeah.
And I understand his reasoning. Basically, he was saying the Chargers aren't a good enough team right now to not trade back in round 1 and get potentially a day 2 pick or multiple day 2 picks to continue building this team the right way instead of maybe taking a luxury pick on a running back. So, David, now that we've seen, videos from the Eagles where you're seeing kind of some trade conversations, the Chargers took all of the time that they could in that draft slot at 22. Are you buying or selling? Maybe it would have been the better choice to trade back instead of taking Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, I think for Omarion Hampton, I don't think the Chargers view him as a luxury pick. I feel like they view him as the workhorse staple of that bully ball kind of, style of football that they want to play, because Najee Harris is here for 1 year. Like, that's all that's guaranteed. Omarion Hampton is here for at least 4 years with the 5th-year option. So I think, just to address that first and foremost, I think, he's part of the future for that pick. Now, if the deal is, let's say, hey, you get a couple of 3rd-round picks, for me personally, I like the idea of taking more of the sure thing. In the 3rd round, is there a chance for you to get a great player? Sure. The Chargers were able to draft Keenan Allen in the 3rd round, and obviously he's one of the best receivers in Chargers history. But they also drafted Trey McKitty in the 3rd round, and he was an absolute bust. So for me personally, I would prefer to get the player that has a higher likelihood of making an impact on the team, not only in the short term, but in the long term, in the 1st round, than trading back in that situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, you still also obviously get whatever pick you trade back to,
Sure.
plus the additional third round pick, right? So you're still getting somewhat of a sure thing, however you feel about it. I think to Alistair's point, it's the draft is a crapshoot. You might think that certain picks are better, and historically, when you take guys higher, there's a better chance for them working out. And the Chargers obviously would have been trading back, 10 picks, 12 picks, nothing drastically. They weren't getting rid of their first round pick or anything like that. And basically, what his argument was is like, the difference between Omarion Hampton and a Quinshon Judkins, or someone you could have got at 32 or 34 had you moved back with the Eagles or the Giants, isn't worth the same amount as getting 2 additional third round picks or 2 additional dart throws in the top 100 picks to improve your roster. I totally understand that. It's not as if the Chargers traded up for a running back like they did with Melvin Gordon, but it was also considered a deep running back class. So I understand it, and this is going to solely kind of hinge on how good of a running back Omarion Hampton is. I think he's going to be good. I think the Chargers might have thought maybe he was kind of the last guy there that they thought of as a for sure starter impact player for us in year one, and that's why they did it. So I'll sell them trading back because I don't know what it would have been, and I would have to know that. We know they asked for a second round pick, and if that was on the table, I would have done it. But at the same time, without knowing, I'm going to sell it. Let's get to this next one here from Nick German, who says, buy or sell. Following free agency in the draft, despite the loss of Poona Ford, there isn't a position group on the team as a whole that hasn't been upgraded from last year. I'm selling this one pretty easily. I mean, I think the thing is like, I don't think there's a position that they got a ton worse. Like they might have gotten worse on the interior defensive line. I think it's really hard to argue right now, not knowing what Jamari Caldwell is going to be, that they got better there. I don't think they got demonstrably worse at any position. I think that's a win too, and people don't probably talk about that part of it enough. I'd say, though, there are certain positions where, like, is the edge rusher room better right now with Kyle Kennard instead of Joey Bosa, even if he wasn't 100% last season? That's hard to say right now, and I think there's just a lot that are about the same, like safety, like tackle, like quarterback. I mean, obviously, Trey Lance over Easton Stick, but still, your top two guys are your top two guys. Linebacker, cornerback. Those are about the same. I mean, like, what did you really add in that? Even cornerback, Dante Jackson and Benjamin St. Juste to replace, Christian Fulton. That doesn't move the needle
Asante,
really in one way.
Who barely played, right?
Asante, I don't even count because when he played last year, he played bad. And obviously, we're talking about this year compared to last year's roster. So I'd have to sell that one, David.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think that the Chargers definitely got better at a lot of positions. Wide receiver, running back, offensive line with Mekhi Becton, tight end, defensive line. Cornerback. I think they at least added somebody that.
You think they got better on the defensive line?
Possibly, yeah, with Jamari Caldwell and the way he fits, and I mean we'll have to see how the veterans do, right? And the Quan Jones and Deshaun Hand, they're going to be a big reason in how they evaluate that, and also what is Justin Aboigbe going to be able to do in his second season, right? I mean, those are all reasons why I think you could have a little bit of encouragement. I don't know if it'll be better, but I think the position group for me that stands out that didn't get any better was linebacker. You didn't really add anybody. You lost Nick Neiman, who I think was a rock solid linebacker, who also definitely contributed on special teams. You bring in Delshon Phillips, but he's basically just the answer, for that special teams part of it. Who knows what he's going to be able to bring from a, defensive standpoint. So I don't know if they got better at every single position, but I do feel like they got deeper for sure overall.
Yeah, I'd say as a whole, like they have a much deeper group, and even at the interior defensive line, because if you have Naquan Jones and Deshaun Hand taking snaps that maybe Tito Abonia or Scott Matlock or a kind of young and inexperienced Justin Aboigbe had last year, those are snaps you could say are improvements. We'll see what Jamari Caldwell is, but your biggest loss, arguably in free agency, was Poona Ford. So to think that one of these guys is going to be Poona Ford right away, very hard to say that. Can they attack it with numbers and minimize how much worse they got there potentially? Yeah, and I think that's what they did. But let's get to Athir here because he's very excited about something that's coming up next week that we're also very excited about.
Daniel, David, this is Athir. Bio Sell Wednesday. Chargers social media will take a shot at everybody on the schedule when it get released next week. Unfortunately, my team's going to have to accept the consequences. I'm buying it. What do you got to say? Thank you. Love you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one thing we know with the Chargers social media team, and that is no one is safe. Whether it's from the schedule or it's Pop-Tarts, whatever it is, the Chargers social media is out for blood. And I went back and watched all the other schedule releases, and make sure you guys are back here with us for that next week, Wednesday, May 14th. We'll probably do a live show that night to react to the Chargers schedule release. And it's so awesome knowing that we have something to look forward to. There's so many bad schedule releases, David. So I'm buying this in a big way. Nobody is safe, whether it's Sean Payton or the Chiefsaholic or Harrison Butker or Raiders fans watching the game from jail cells. Nobody is safe, and I'm excited to see what they do this year.
The Chargers have a rich history of absolutely destroying all of their opponents and also embarrassing them, turning them into Pop-Tarts, making a lot of players very angry, which I definitely thoroughly enjoy. But also there's a lot of pressure there too, man. Like, the Chargers have set the bar so incredibly high for their schedule releases. What could they possibly be doing next? What are they going to be able to do to top what they've already done? That's what we're going to have to find out next week.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure on them, right? That it just feels like you're going to get something good out of it no matter what, or something that will have something to talk about for sure. Because they did 2 anime ones back to back, 2022, 2023. The anime one in 2022 is really feeling like what started all of this, right? And then obviously they doubled down on it in 2023. Last year they did it in Sims, which was great. And, you have the Sims going into the well for the Broncos, and it's like you can have a franchise quarterback or dead cap space, like no good options. So much good stuff. I think the Ravens should probably be happy that they're not on the schedule this year, because I remember what the Deshaun Watson schedule release part was that first year when they played Cleveland in 2022. And, maybe the Chargers lawyers would have had to redact it, but it sure would have been funny either way. But I can't wait to see and watch it 16 times to see if I can pick up the next little Easter egg, because I went back and saw things today on these last few that I don't remember. So, there's going to be so much to look into there. I'm super excited. No more, Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh pillow fight, I don't think, this year, since the Ravens are on the schedule. But I think it's going to be great, because that's what they do. They're the best social media team in the NFL. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you are back here tomorrow, because we have the director on, and we're so excited to have him on, for, third or fourth time we've had him. He's the best. He always brings the energy, and we're excited to bring him on to hear his thoughts on this off season. So to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free right now on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you have those notifications set up so that you know when this show comes out. And you can also find it by following all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find it on each of our own Twitter accounts, for me at Dan Talk Sports and David at Dro Talk SD. And if you guys want to get your thoughts on the show, call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. Give us your 30-second Chargers question or buy or sell, and we will try to get it on the show. But you, us, the director, tomorrow, make sure you guys are back here for that. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.